I have around 80 hours in this game, and I wanted to cover a couple of different topics of what I like, what I don't like, and the things I wish they would change. For more of a background, I was trying to do the hardcore solo first and died 3 times. Once to server DC and once to my own lag at 50, and now I've given up on that and will only play softcore, but a lot less. I'm sure there's tons of videos out there saying the same stuff I am, but I'll start by going over things I like first. Main reason I bring this video up is that I want to talk about the state of the game. It's a great game and could be a lot better, but the end game ruins it. I wish there was an option to play the game outside of servers so you don't have to worry about DCing from the server. It's an interesting game mode where you die for good, but the risk is too big for no reward, especially for how much time it takes to grind to 100. Anything could happen. Like maybe you have a character get thrown back to level 50 would have been a bit better. I will say that it does make the game more entertaining to play. Going back into the softcore after playing hardcore feels a lot worse. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't be playing this mode if it wasn't for the challenge that Blizzard made. The reason for this mode sucks is the server instability and time. You need a lot of time and luck to not run into any bugs, otherwise leveling to 100 is pretty easy to challenge. The only thing I wish is that if a hardcore character dies for them to somehow transfer over to normal realm, but I know that would defeat the purpose. It's like 80 hours lost and I don't really feel like playing anymore, and that is the main reason for making this video. I'll get into a lot of the other stuff later. I know they were talking about adding DC protection. I wish that was in the game before I lost my characters. I think the story was well spread out and easy to do. There were some odd breakpoints that made you have to do dungeons to level, but overall pacing wasn't too bad. It takes anywhere from like 15 to 25 hours to complete and will leave you around level 40 to 50. I didn't watch any of the story really, but it seemed interesting whenever I watched the cutscene, so I'll assume it was good from what people have been saying. I do enjoy that when you complete the campaign once, all your alts get the skip campaign option. This is a nice touch when starting a new character so the game doesn't force you to do it. The combat is kind of okay. There are 5 different characters all with their own playstyles to mess around with. It's fun to go into a giant group of mobs and one-shot them, but sometimes I feel like the combat is missing something or I really don't enjoy the classes they have to offer. I want to press more abilities. You have a lot of options, but you can only select a few. The map is okay. I enjoy how large it is. It makes you feel like you're playing an open world game like Elden Ring, but at the same time, it's not. There's a lot of room for you to roam around to go to different dungeons, which also leads to a lot of different area diversity. You got ice, swamp, sand, and everything in between. For how big the map is, it never really feels empty and hollow to run around like Sonic Frontiers. Mostly this is because of the constant enemies and world events. I think this is one of the top features because it gives stuff to do outside of the dungeons. Whether it be small events, strongholds, helltides, the legion, world boss, PvP, plus a tree of whispers with rotating areas to focus, they all feel entertaining and gives you something to do in the great world. Granted, you probably won't constantly be outside, but it's a nice change of pace when heading towards endgame. The only thing that makes outdoors feel like shit is the mount. This thing is the most mechanically unresponsive thing to ride and it feels like it's always bugging out. If they increase the speed and make it more responsive, traversing with this thing could feel a lot better. I don't know if it's only me, but I hit a lot of server lag when entering a different zone and I just freeze and just stand still. Lilith altars. I think this is a great collectible to hunt to make your main character stronger, and this is account wide so it helps your alts as well. The only thing I don't like is how many of them there are. There are a total of 160 statues, and that is a pretty big amount, and if you collect them all, most of them give +2 to a stat and 4 give 1 paragon point. I wish there was a different method of completion for these. Maybe linear where altars are all the same and the max goal is like 50 to 100 and getting the same reward by number, not by the individual and not by the individual statue. That way you don't have to farm all of them because it takes a good chunk of your time to travel everywhere with your broken horse. This ties back to hardcore and softcore. The progress does not transfer. I think this is my biggest peeve and why I just want to stop playing is that I took so much time doing the altars, renown aspects from dungeons on hardcore and it doesn't transfer into softcore. I don't want to spend another 20 to 25 hours grinding something that I already did. Renown. Another concept that I really enjoy, however, I hate the way that this was executed. Now I'm speaking on this from the hardcore perspective who lost their character that was out of my control. Before I go into that, I'll talk about the good part. There are 5 divisions which will give gold and an account-wide buff to 2 skill points, an extra potion, 4 paragon points per zone. Going back to the altar buffs, this is a nice thing for alts because once you farm it once, it's account-wide. However, there's one big catch. If you're doing it on hardcore and you die, you lose all of your map progress, altar discoveries, dungeons, so you're back to square one. Safe to say I was a little tilted being level 50, having each place close to 1k renown, having to refarm all the statues, dungeons that are already completed. Softcore people, you don't really have to worry about this, but I pray no one DCs on hardcore making them regrind everything. It's a nightmare. I also heard that Renown might reset season by season, and I really hope that's not the case. Blizzard loves rep grinding, which is okay, but at some point, I don't want to spend forever grinding rep. I don't understand how people can defend that gameplay. That is what brings me to the next point, to lower the required rep per location. Me personally, I like it to be 1k just because there are 5 locations. Even if you passively play the game, I think you have to go back and out of your way to do the side quest to get 2k. On my most recent character, all I did was farm rep. I think my first zone got me to level 30 in 4 hours, which is pretty nice. So generally speaking, it takes around like 4 to 6 hours per location to reach max rep, depending on the difficulty. I say that because on an easier difficulty, you can run through the dungeons faster. Next zone got me to 40, then 47, then 52, 55 on completion. So in about 20 to 30 hours, I finished all the renown and I'm only level 55. This is why I wish the requirement was cut to 10 hours max, because there's a lot of time you sink doing random stuff in each zone. On the other spectrum, you don't have to do these, but the buffs they provide is too essential, especially when you're doing hardcore and you're trying to min-max to safety net yourself for the best possible chance to get to 100. Like I stated before, the worst part about this is the hardcore renown doesn't go to softcore, meaning you have to grind everything again. The reason that bothers me so much is until they put DC protection, hardcore isn't worth playing, and I don't want people to spend time in it like I did, and you'll just lose all your progress. You'll lose your character to reasons out of your control, but they will most likely put patches out later in months to come. I started on hardcore and want to play with my friends on softcore, but now I'm going to have to refarm everything. Hopefully they release an update that fixes it and makes hardcore renowned progress transfer into softcore. For now, my desire to play kind of plummeted. Now the real fun begins. Same dungeon spam to 100. It begins spiraling into all the negative stuff that lies within the game and things that I think really need to be changed. The time it takes to end game. Don't get me wrong. People will enjoy this game up to level 80 and then they'll start to understand where I'm coming from, or when they're trying to make an alt. However, on the time of making this video, this is after all the dungeon nerfs and them stating they will buff the nightmare dungeons. Hopefully this is an actual huge buff to make everything I'm talking about a lot better. If this was fixed, then the game wouldn't feel like shit to play past 70. The main staple of this game is to get to 100, do high level nightmare dungeons for a chance of better gear, upgrading runes, and then finally beating the Echo of Lillith. I do think that this is a cool goal and Lillith is a good boss fight, unless you're doing hardcore and you get one shot by her and you begin again. For hardcore and having this high stakes, I do not like how long it takes to hit level 100. First run of the campaign is like 20 hours, Renown is another 20, and now you're looking at 60 to 150 hours of dungeon spam mixed with world content to hit 100. This is giving me big and new world vibes where I spent days farming boars wondering what my life was coming to. Blizzard is legit gatekeeping the community into playing more, and this is something they are known for. Just because people are playing the game more because your systems keep us in the game longer doesn't mean we're enjoying all of it. For example, Elden Ring is the best idea of an open world with a bunch of different content to do. It's not the same dungeons, same mobs, it's constantly throwing you into different places and bosses, where in Diablo, you're looking at fighting the same thing for 60 hours straight. There are different enemies within the game, but I feel like it's the same 5 types of mobs with different variations. The average person is going to give up and not come close to 100. Do not get me wrong, this game is a lot of fun to mess around with builds, fighting a bunch of mobs and getting gear. I'm still enjoying playing it and entering these dungeons to fight the mobs, but this is a lurking feeling you have whenever you play the game. If you're able to play every day on release, you're able to farm XP and actually make good progress to your level. This is where it separates the average players for streamers. If you're casually playing the game, you're not going to want to spend all your time getting all those collectibles and farming renown. This will lead to eventual burnout from the level progression feeling so slow, where you spend half the time in dungeons, then half the time dealing with your bags. This is why I feel like the requirement for leveling in renown should be lowered to reward these people who do not have the time to devote every second of the game to reach level 100. Like, mind you, these people have probably like 2-3 hours at most a night during the week to play this game. So it's going to take them forever. I think a good benchmark would be 46 hours for the first character you make to get to 100 and do everything, and then maybe on an alt have it be like 20 to 40. There are a lot of buffs that can transfer to your alts, but not the XP. You're still going to have to spend a lot of time to level something else up, and I think that is the game's biggest weak point. So with the XP, the reason why people are spamming dungeons, constantly looking for the fastest XP, the reason why people are grouping to get to 50 in an hour is because leveling blows. After you do it once, it takes a long time to do it again. That's why they should lower the time it takes. No one wants to spend forever leveling. All people want to do is level fast, get the good gear, and then mess around with the builds and stuff. It shouldn't take 100 to 200 hours for mains or alts. That's way too much time. I feel like lowering the time it takes for one character will encourage people to try different classes out and enjoy more builds and options. If you're a streamer who has the time to do this, you won't notice it that much. But if you're a casual gamer, it's going to start being a slug once you get to 60. These players won't fully get to experience the end game of trying to make different builds or leveling another character. The game really opens up at 70. Reason why I say that and not 100 is that you have a full class of points and a lot of paragon points. This will allow for full customization of builds. Getting to 100 is a hike. The semi pulls over into my next topic as well, group content. I think this is good and bad. The good side, you can split dungeons for faster XP farming, and faster dungeons mean less time doing the Rewnown farm. So as a solo player, there's a big gap in time to endgame if you don't have anyone to play with. Everything will take longer solo. Now this is very controversial. If you have beaten the campaign once, you can have someone run you through capstones and level you to 50 in just an hour. You see all these videos, how to level your alts fast. And in the first 10 seconds, they're like, okay, so you're just going to grab a friend. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll go fuck myself, I guess, because I don't have anyone who's doing hardcore. I think that this is a great option for gearing alts to 50. However, this one really skews hardcore. A big reason anyone is doing hardcore is to be the top 1,000 to reach 100, but streamers are legit getting boosted back to 50 in an hour after they die, which does not feel good to the solo player. I don't have anyone to boost me back to 50 after I died. I had to do that grind twice. The reason why every streamer is abusing this is because leveling sucks and takes way too long. On paper, this challenge sounds like a fun time and puts a reason to play the permadeath game mode, but a lot of people have server problems and end up dying in their run, meaning they will start from scratch. Imagine playing for 150 hours only being leveled 90 to die to a bug and have to do it all again. I will say this, if you haven't played yet, do not play hardcore, it is not worth. This mode nets a little reward. The only reason why I'm playing it is because that's what I started in, and I feel like I can't switch softcore because of the Rewnown stuff. But honestly, back to the challenge, I think they should have released it as a softcore thing as well. That way, all these hardcore deaths would be prevented and it wouldn't have paused anyone's progress. It's great that someone can speed you to 50 an hour, but what happens if you don't have anyone? It's going to probably take you 15 to 20 hours to get back to 50, so I just lose out on leveling because I don't know anyone. At this point, I might as well offer a service to boost people through the capstones. I don't think Blizzard should remove it from the game, but make it so solo is just as easy to get back to 50. Once you hit level 50 is when the game first starts to open up. This is why I wish they would cut down the time it takes to get to 100 for having a game mode that is so unforgiving while all your work is deleted. It's not worth the time to remake or even do alts. 100 to 200 hours down the drain if you wipe. I think it should only take 20 to 50 hours for max level. Putting all this time into leveling limits the ability to play with different builds and other classes, or maybe just add a level 50 skip. With all of these dungeon nerfs, I'm not sure how long it takes to actually hit 1 to 100 anymore. For all I know, it could take around 100 to 200 hours. This is what turns back to the New World failure. At least with this, dungeons are fun to a certain extent, but I feel like a lot of people will stop way before 100 because of how repetitive the content will become after you do the last capstone at 70. Bag space. At first I thought people were just being nitpicky about gems. You get a lot of gems and no room for them. This isn't bad. I'd rather be swimming in them than not having any at all, but I'm glad they're actually giving people gem bags eventually. Still wish there could be a little bit more gear space, but I guess it's alright. Gear drops. So this one kind of goes into leveling of what drops, how much, and scaling. There are some noticeable spikes when it comes to leveling. It feels like it happens every 10 levels. The things ramp up. I don't mind this, but in hardcore you'll be enjoying one dungeon's level up from 19 to 20 and then you're getting hit like a truck, or the final push to 50 is a bit rough. Just going back to leveling taking less time, I think the overall scaling of enemies should be lowered until you get to 100, or the item level drops should be more consistent and closer to your level. If you level too quickly, the enemies will quickly outscale you. I don't know why drops for legendary items were always 10 levels lower than what I was, but it felt horrible. If the drops were my level and I didn't have to worry about constantly applying aspects, I feel like leveling would be more of a breeze. Instead, I'm doing one dungeon, getting a bag full of probably bad gear, inspecting that one item and debating if it's worth to spend my resources to put an aspect on it. The joy of getting a legendary got filled with sadness because I was level 30 and the gear was level 20, meaning I'm never going to use it other than ripping apart the aspect from it or salvaging it. Once you hit 50, it costs a lot of resources to change a piece of gear, so it makes it difficult to really change anything. I wish more legendaries dropped or the material required to upgrade was less. This will allow for free crafting and allow flexibility to easily switch your aspects to try a different build. Like right now, I've been playing the pulverized druid build and would really like to try my own builds, but I can't really break away from the current path because it costs a lot of material. I swear I got the best drops when I was level 50, and when progressing to 60, everything kept going lower and lower to a point where like I was level 56 and getting drops that were 100 item level worse than what I was getting when I was 50. I want it to be more linear. It's not making sense. I don't know if that's just a druid problem or if other classes are facing that similarity, because I know people are complaining about the druid loot tables. Skill diversity. For you to really experiment and test your character, it's going to take you to around level 70. You want to get there quickly, but leveling takes too long. I wish there was a training grounds where you can equip different gear, aspects, talents, paragon, whatever it might be. It costs a pretty penny when you're first starting out to mess around with your core build and all. I'm not going to lie, some of the released characters don't seem that interesting to play, and I'm hoping there's an update with a class that really suits me, but I will never be able to test all these characters because it takes forever. You don't see your class shine until 70 with a full skill tree and a couple of paragon boards. And Blizzard just being Blizzard. I'm actually super tilted that they nerfed the dungeon XP along with the rest of the community. If you're a streamer and played every day since release, you got to play in these unnerfed dungeons, gathering tons of XP and leveling fast and probably hit 100 within like 50 hours. But if you don't have the time, Blizzard keeps dragging out the game for almost no gain. It's almost like people want to get to 100, and the reason people are mad is because Blizzard is making it take hours upon hours to get there. What should only be a 30-hour journey takes up to 200 hours. I want to be able to play all the classes, try a multitude of different builds to see if I can create something new and fun, but playing one class takes forever. Nightmare Dungeons. With the XP leading into the final topic, Nightmare Dungeons, I think this is a cool aspect. Dungeon modifiers to make your run harder with more difficult enemies. With endgame, you will want to try to push the highest tier of the Nightmare Dungeons. At the start, I think you only want to do Nightmare to get gear and rune upgrades to spam normal dungeons again to 70, do the capstone, then go back to Nightmare for better gear, then back to dungeon spam. The only thing I don't like, and this goes back to scaling and gearing, is the system could be utilized to be the fastest way to gear and level up if Blizzard optimized it correctly. If dungeon tiers scaled exponentially with XP earned from higher tiers and better rewards, I think people would actively seek these dungeons more often. Otherwise, people will spam normal dungeons because there's no real gain out of doing Nightmare dungeons besides getting the gear spike and then grinding XP to 100. Luckily, they said they will buff Nightmare dungeons, and I hope this is a turbo buff. I'm talking like you do want to do dungeons to level up and get a lot of good gear. And the last thing, CC, I wanted to add this in because I see people complaining about it everywhere. People want to be mobs with CC because it will lead to them being one shot. As Druid, you don't have to worry too much about this with the pulverized build because you have two abilities that make you immune to CC, so I never really saw it too much. However, other classes do not have it that easy. If there was some middle ground for those classes that allowed them to become CC immune, I think that would help them a lot. I think that one aspect that grants CC immunity at 35% health would be really good if it was like 10% and then full healed you if you were CC'd. With all that said, this game is still really fun and you'll get a lot of hours out of it, but some slight adjustments would make this game a whole lot better. I'd suggest playing it if you like the dungeon crawlers and killing mobs for loot. I always see people say the story is interesting for people into that. The only thing I have against the game is a grind to 100. I think I'm going to be taking a break from the game for a while because it takes forever and I'm waiting and hoping that they will fix this. Blizzard just has to turbo buff XP and the drops from Nightmare Dungeons to make the leveling from 1 to 100 take only 20 to 40 hours, and everything would be good. That's it for this one. If there's anything else you'd like me to address, let me know down below, and maybe I'll do a shorter P2, but thank you for watching. See ya.